we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Hey, guess what? I was muted. Greetings, fellow thought criminals. Thank you for joining the Insurrection. I'm Michael Lauver. Today I'm joined by Steve Hook, host of The Right Hook, which I believe we're moving to Wednesdays now this week.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. How you doing this morning, Steve?
I'm doing good. My mic is on. I'm here. I survived the weekend. I went and saw the Odyssey. Oh yeah, I'll tell you about that in a bit. And but it's a good weekend. It's good to be with you, brother.
Well, actually, you know what? Let's hear about the Odyssey now, because this weekend, and I didn't even pull these stories, but once again we had a wave of violence in blue cities up in New York and Chicago, and was it Seattle? They had a shooting involving multiple gunmen. I also got to listen to the mainstream dinosaur media bitch about the Correspondence Center all weekend. I didn't bother grabbing a story there. Apparently, they're upset that Trump was mean. They say attacking Caitlin Collins and basically calling him out for those shenanigans. He was mean spirited. And what do you expect? You guys have been calling him a Nazi for 10 years and wishing death upon him and his family. So. But though honestly, I think the funniest joke of the night though from Trump was the one about the steak they were eating was run over by a cow that came from a cow that RFK Jr. ran over before the dinner.
Classic.
Yeah, that was probably the funniest. But yeah, I don't blame him for going after him. But yeah, let's hear about the Odyssey.
Well, I will say this. If the first word I would say about the movie is loud. It is very, very loud. So just be forewarned if you're going to go see it. Now, I went to see it not because of all of the controversy around the casting calls. I went to see it because I'm a huge fan of Greek mythology. And my wife wanted to see it. So I said, yeah, I'll go. I don't care. I'll just, I'll withhold any verdict on the movie until I've seen it. But of course, the big question is, why is Juno playing a guard, and for Odysseus, Odysseus's right-hand man is a woman pretending to be a man. That, of course, was and why is Helen of Troy all of a sudden a black woman? I think that those casting calls were made for two reasons. And I think you brought one of them up. One of the reasons was because it made people talk about the film and get pissy about it. And these people love to poke conservatives in an eye with a stick and then scream racism. So I think it was intentional in that way. I think it was a stick in the eye. And also, as you mentioned off air, and you're absolutely right, to be considered for Oscar-worthy nominations, because you have to check off all the boxes in Hollywood in order to get that little golden statue. And this would bother me if I were just reviewing the movie. I'd say it's very loud. It's very loud. The scene.
Funny.
Go
Funny
ahead.
you say that because I don't go to the theater a lot, but I did see The Dark Knight Rises in the theater, another Christopher Nolan movie, and I remember that being super super loud in the theater too. And I wasn't sure if it was just the theater or maybe a pattern with Nolan's films.
I think it's a pattern with Nolan's films, but this one was even more loud, if that's possible. I mean, the scene inside of Cyclops' cave was just, I mean, deafeningly loud. Now, getting back to the whole casting thing, this would be fine if it was just, okay, that's it. But we also just recently, and this one's just tanking, it's crapping the bed, the live action remake of Moana. Now, the
Yeah.
live action remake of Moana, if you read any of the press that was put forth for that film, they said, we wanted to be very respectful of Polynesian culture. So
Yep.
they only cast Polynesian actors and actresses and all this, and they really went out of their way to lift these people up. Now, I've got nothing against the Polynesian culture. They've got some beautiful islands. I've got nothing, I've never had any problem with them. I don't, but this is creating a problem, you see. And
Yeah.
this is what the left always does. So the Polynesian culture needs to be lifted up and propped up and really made to feel special. But a 2,500-year-old epic poem from a very white Greek guy named Homer, we can just trash that and screw
Yes.
tradition, and that is why the casting decision was a sharp stick in the eye. They intentionally did it to piss people off, and they would never do it. You will never see a remake of Shaka Zulu with Gary Oldman playing Shaka Zulu. That will
Yes.
never,
Yes.
ever happen in a million years. They would probably go out of their way to find an actual ancestor, living ancestor somewhere over in Africa, in Kenya, to play Shaka Zulu, and it would be a great grandson of the original, and he's going to be that's the way they would do it. So I think that the hypocrisy and the blatant, just
Yeah.
antagonistic casting, and it was antagonistic casting is probably the best way to put it, and it was intentional. But
Well,
the
yeah.
movie itself is good, but very loud.
Well, yeah, and you're exactly right. That's the problem. It's trying to erase and rewrite history through, the Shaka Zulu is a great example. Yeah, they would not replace Shaka Zulu with a gay, trans, disabled, albino, um, whatever.
Swede.
Yeah, it just isn't going to happen. But that's normal. I'm glad that the Moana film is like, authentic, hiring Polynesians for the cast. It makes sense. It's their
Yeah.
story. It's about them. It should be accurate. You don't need to insert a bunch of other people. Again, you don't need a gay, trans, disabled, leftist, blue-haired moonbat being hauled around in a wheelchair just to get your diversity points. People are sick and tired of that. And again, a great story like this that hasn't been, brought to theaters for generations. It should be accurate. And again, that's the
Well, and you
problem.
know
It's the
what they
thumb in
say
the
to that,
eye.
Michael? What they say to that is, it's a movie, for God's sakes. Get over yourself. It was an epic poem that is based on a fantasy, so it's a movie. And this is the way they do it. I'm like, okay, well, Moana was invented in the 90s by Walt
Yeah.
Disney Company. But it doesn't matter. It's absolutely designed to provoke outrage so they can point their fingers at people and say, see, transphobic, see, racist, see. And that's what they do it for. And it's so obvious. And I think that what the left is missing in this is that's what people are really pissed about.
Yeah.
They're pissed about the fact that they're being intentionally baited. Most people are smart enough to see that they're being baited. I certainly was. I saw it. I'm like, okay, well, that's Juno. No matter what
Yeah.
anybody says, that's Juno. I don't care what she says, he says, they, they. I don't give a crap about all that. But I do know one thing, that 5'2" guard would be overtaken in about 30 seconds if a real Achilles type character came into play. It's just,
Yes.
the whole thing is just so absurd, but the absurdity is based on screw them. That's what's so frustrating about it.
Yeah, and people are sick and tired of it. But yeah, some of the videos out mocking it are just great with her struggling to open up the pickle jar or whatever else. But yeah, I mean, people are sick and tired of it. There's an obvious, there's a reason Hollywood is falling apart right now. And, I saw something else interesting. If they don't allow this merger to go through, that Paramount Warner Brothers may just abandon California, and that may be the final nail in the coffin for Hollywood. But let's go ahead and get into it here because the Trump administration has faced over 900 lawsuits, most in districts full of Obama or Biden appointed judges. I mean, this is unreal, especially in comparison with previous presidents. And not to mention, most of these lawsuits are either frivolous, they know they're going to lose the minute it moves up to a higher court, or they're entirely politicized. And same thing, they don't have real grounds. Judges are exceeding their authority. Something needs to be done about this. Congress has the ability to impeach these judges. The House does. They need to start doing it, especially with, like, the repeat offenders like Boasberg and others that just keep doing it, or Sparkle Zuckerman or whatever its name is out there. It's time to actually do something because, again, it's like there's never consequences. It's just going to happen. We're a year and a half into Trump's term, and there's 900 lawsuits. This is almost 10 times the number of lawsuits next closest number of lawsuits faced by a president during a 4-year term. I mean, it's literal insanity, and we're going to get into some of the new ones from the last several days here in a minute.
Yeah, well, I mean, what do you expect, Michael, for real? I mean, here's the thing, here's the problem. And we've talked about it before, but the left controlling all these levers of the social zeitgeist, whether it's Hollywood, as we just discussed, whether it's academia, which is well documented, or whether it's the media, which we all know. This is why the media's popularity and trust ranking is lower than whale crap.
Yes.
And so this kind of goes hand in hand with the correspondence dinner, don't you see? All of those people at that correspondence dinner that are pissed off at Trump because he was mean are more than willing to get on the news and say, the Trump administration has convicted 34 times of felonies. And they'll put that out, they'll spew that crap out as if it's real news. They won't tell you that the law was made up in order to get Trump, and it's never been a law, and they're not real felony convictions. They're going to be overturned, and that many of them already have been, and they will probably all be. The media just wants to shift and focus narrative and move agendas because they're all part of the same damn team. And Democrats are that way. The judicial system is obviously riddled with them. Biden made sure of that. Obama made sure of that. Clinton even made sure of that. So all of these cases coming from Biden and Obama judges is no shocker at all, while the media is on their high horse saying Trump is weaponizing the DOJ. Just think about that. Trump is weaponizing the DOJ while he's had 900 lawsuits by the DOJ, by judges, activist judges, bringing cases against Trump. It's beyond parody is what it is. But people that are predestined to hate Trump because they've been marinating in this media crap for so long, they say, well, he probably deserved every one. And they cheer all of these things on. And then if Trump raises a question about any of these judges, oh, look what he's doing. He's weaponizing the DOJ. It's such obvious BS that you have to be very stupid to believe it, or very, partisan.
Partisan.
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Maybe a little both.
Oh, yeah. Well, appeals court blocks Trump's mail-in voting order in 23 Democrat-led states, setting up a SCOTUS fight. So this was, another judge tried this before, then it was overturned by another appeals court. But, once again, you find one activist judge. And, I guess my other question here is, why is it only the blue states that don't have to comply with this law? Now, maybe there is a reason for that buried in the lawsuit. Honestly, I have not gone through it this time in detail, like I asked some of the other suits against Trump. But there's a few facets to this. This again shows why it's so important to pass the SAVE Act. And as we discussed with all our guests on Friday, where we dug into these voter rolls and phantom voters in Texas and in Illinois, I really think,
and now in Alaska, by the way, and of course New Jersey.
Well, those are illegals. The phantom voter is something else. It's they've been this couple that runs UniteForFreedom.com, they've been going through Illinois voter rolls originally, and they found that almost 15% of the voters don't connect back to real people that are voting in the elections. They don't have real names, real addresses, real anything, but somehow they're voting. In
Wow.
Texas is almost as bad. Texas, they were at 14%. And again, this is more than enough to steal any election in the country, just about. I mean, now there's a few runaway seats that one side or the other wins by 30 points. But if you have this many presumably being manipulated voters, something has to be done. We're going to have to delete the entire voter database for the entire country, start fresh, and have people register in person with an ID and proof of citizenship, and go back to just paper ballots, because there is no way you can trust this current system at all, with all the flaws, all the holes in it, and I think many of them placed there intentionally. But yeah, this is going to go to SCOTUS, and I really wonder how they'll rule, because again, we know Amy Coney Barrett is afraid of the left, especially since having her house, targeted by them. I'm sure the rest of them aren't real comfortable either with the lack of security and everything else. So will they be intimidated into this? Because it's time for the courts to do something, to make a bold move and say, yes, the American people deserve to have only Americans voting in the elections. This is ballot fraud. If states are not enforcing existing rules, then there has to be some level of accountability. So hopefully they find their testicles and actually do something about it. But yeah, now we have a Supreme Court fight once again because of a corrupt leftist judge.
Well, gee, imagine that. There'll probably be at least 6 more of these similar stories between now and midterms. This is what they do. They set it up to be able to be, so the voter rolls can be malleable and we can bend them around the candidate we like. Unless they turn into a Graham Plattner, and then we'll replace him with an equally crazy ass person. Look, here's the thing. It obviously has to be changed, but you mentioned the name there, Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
This is going to really come down on her, and it's, of course, also on Chief Justice John Roberts, and those two, if they pull this frickin' frack move that they did last time, where they both kind of got each other's back and screw the American people, then we are rightly screwed.
Yeah.
But if this goes, I suspect, and I hope I'm right about this, that they will both vote to, this is federal election law. Some activist judge in some blue state or blue city or blue,
jurisdiction.
Thank you. Then they're going to have to take this on. But this is why they flood the zone so much. This is why there's 900 lawsuits against the Trump administration.
Yeah.
This is what they all but admitted during Trump's first term. We kept him so tied up in court appearances that he couldn't move his agenda forward. Don't think that's not what's going on here. That's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. Trump just doesn't seem to give a damn about it this time, and he's hiring all kinds of attorneys and going after them. But this case had better get to the SCOTUS and better get there quick. And you're right. It could be made a moot point if the Senate could pass the goddamn SAVE Act. Then we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah, and actually, I just saw Trump made a statement on Thune. Let me grab this real quick. Because, that's another thing people have been saying is, why is he so adamant about going after Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, and he treats Thune with kid gloves? Trump calls out John Thune, saying Democrats can't believe how lucky they got with Senate leadership, because, he seems a lot more destructive to me than Massey or Greene or anybody else, especially considering what really drew his ire was demanding compliance with the law, which he signed, and releasing all the Epstein documents, which they still haven't done. And I guess they're getting ready to get a second iteration of that bill and court cases. Obama judge protecting Portland's biased policing rules Trump DOJ acted in bad faith and with unclean hands for demanding records on anti-conservative discrimination at ICE protests. So everybody knows what this is about. You had multiple instances, like Nick Sorter getting arrested and released. That's Katie Davenport right there. She was attacked on video. The police refused to do anything about it and actually threatened to charge her as well. You've also got, friend of the program and guest, Right Side Rebel. She was attacked on video out there. Same thing. No arrests, no anything. We kind of have a pattern here where they protect Antifa and refuse to do anything when journalists are attacked, especially if those journalists happen to be on the right, because there are some other like local news people have also been attacked and they won't do anything about it. But they're just out there reporting. To my knowledge, they're not. They don't have a right-wing bias. I mean, if anything, it's news in Seattle or Portland. It's probably pretty far to the left. But they just don't like their actions being shown. But again, you want to talk about pure activism for a judge pretending that they're acting in bad faith or don't have clean hands. Why? Because they're exposing what's going on there. Again, this is somebody that should be removed from office, never allowed to hold a gavel again. But Congress, guys, and I don't know, this may be a local judge. I actually forgot to check that. But, again, this is why Congress needs to act and send a message to even scare activists like this out of doing these kind of insane things and actually protecting their constituents.
Well, this is what you get when you get bigger, more intrusive government. This is what the left wants. The irony isn't lost on anyone. They despise Trump. They think everything that Trump does is evil, but their answer is a bigger government. So They hate Trump. So what they're really saying is, we hate anything about conservatives, and we hate the government so long as conservatives run it. But when we run it, we'll only allow ourselves to win, and we will be the monopoly. And then we'll bring about nirvana. Some people, especially young people, are just stupid enough to believe that.
Yeah.
And that's the sad truth. And again, these people call it the generation COVID. These people were brought up with huge student debts handed to them courtesy, by the way, of Barack Obama, thanks to him taking over the federal student loan program in order to fund Obama fail. But none of these people know this. See, this is the blessing and the curse of being politically knowledgeable. You know what the problem is, but you also know that 70% of the people are not very politically knowledgeable, and they don't know. They can't connect the dots because they don't want to be bothered with looking at the dots. And then they bitch at who the media tells them to bitch at, or who their favorite rap star, or who their favorite pop star, or who their favorite athlete is. And this is the kind of Portland and Seattle are communist states,
hellholes,
communist cities. It's like little Stalingrad and little Leningrad over there. You could not pay me to live in either one of those cities. I don't give a damn how beautiful it is. I love the natural beauty of Portland and Seattle. It's the unnatural beauty of it that sucks. The people.
Yes.
So I wouldn't go anywhere near those cities, but that's what you're going to get when you have this fantastical notion that big government's going to solve your problems. They're going to be they'll solve the problems the way you want them to be solved, provided you're on the left. That's it.
Yeah. I mean,
and then they'll crush you, by the way. Then they'll crush you.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, I mean, these cities have turned into, beautiful places, and it's not that long ago where Seattle and Portland were that way. I mean, you go back 20 years, they were great. I've been out there for work several times. It does rain a lot, but, now you got syringes in the streets, drug addicts everywhere, overdoses on every corner, and then these blue-haired moonbats out there holding the city hostage, whether it's in front of the ICE facilities or making noise in front of apartment complexes they don't like because I don't even know what the reasoning is on some of them. And the police not doing anything, basically being the security forces for the leftist revolutionaries, these commie revolutionaries. We're going to get more into that here with another story, but I want to bring up one other article with judges. Controversial anti-Trump Judge Boasberg keeps ruling against POTUS, but keeps getting overturned. At some point you would think there would be some sort of corrective action for this behavior. It used to be when judges kept getting overturned, they were removed because there was clearly a problem with their thinking, that they were either too politicized or too lenient or too whatever. But, we wanted judges there to do one thing and one thing only, and that is uphold the law, whether that was because, another judge in a trial withheld evidence and the person needed a retrial. Or there was a genuine conflict in the law, and then they brought that forward. Their job is to make sure things are adherent with the Constitution and the rule of law, not inject their own political philosophy into everything. And this is the problem. We have all these activists on the left, and then the right tries to be more constitutional. And, at some point, we're going to have to start fighting back like the left is and inject our politics into it, too. Otherwise, this is never going to stop.
Yeah, well, when you use the Constitution to destroy the Constitution, you get judges like Boasberg here.
Yes.
That guy should not only be impeached, he should be disbarred. He is an obvious hack. But of course, he's going to get plaudits and he'll get his laurels from the media and from the Hassan Pikers of the world. Although he'll find a reason to eventually hate him because Piker is just nothing but a little ball of hate himself. But I think that I think you nailed it. I mean, the guy needs to be impeached and he needs to be disbarred. And good God, he probably needs to be rung up on some kind of I don't know if he's committed any crime or not, but good God, it's the dumbing down of America, perhaps. I don't know.
There's definitely some improprieties. I mean, his wife sits on the board of a lot of these, pro illegal alien NGOs and collects a paycheck there, but he's still hearing the cases. At the very least, a lot of these judges should have removed themselves from the cases. But again, the left doesn't do that,
though, Michael, because they're not. Look, if you don't have any moral fiber, and listen, I don't mean to paint with a very broad brush here, but it's just kind of a universal fact. The left does not. Most of them do not have any faith in their life. They have no religion. No, they don't go. They mock people that go to church. They mock people. God knows they hate Jews. So when you release yourself of any moral consequences. And you give into feeling good about yourself because of your own conscience, it's like C.S. Lewis talked about that. I would rather live under, robber barons because sometimes their cupidity may sleep. But someone who rules with their own conscience will torment you forever because they do so with the approval of their own conscience, and that's how the left rules. They rule on whims. They rule on whatever the fashion of the day is. Once it's Black Lives Matter, then it's believe all women, then it's trans rights, then it's whatever. And they jump on all of these bandwagons because they figure they can get more people into their corral. And like I said, some people are just stupid enough to believe it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the truth. Well, we got yet another case, or not yet another case, another state finding large numbers of illegal aliens on their voter rolls. Alaska sends out over 3,000 letters asking voters to prove citizenship. Now, as the story states, there may be a small number of people on here where it is just a mistake. They just need to verify some documents, but the evidence seems pretty overwhelming that the majority of this 3,000 on the voter rolls are not U.S. citizens. And again, we need these people prosecuted if this happens, and we also need to find out how they got on the voter rolls to begin with. Is this more motor voter nonsense? Is this people literally just filling out the forms and knowingly violating our laws? But this is a 50-state problem, and what's New Jersey up to now? Like 35,000 illegals on the voter rolls. The number keeps climbing. This isn't a small problem. Like, that is enough to overturn and flip a lot of local or elections, and even some at the state level as you're getting to those numbers. So we have to purge our voter rolls. We have to verify citizenship for everybody. And again, we need to return to elections that people actually trust, because if they don't trust them, then you no longer have the consent of the governed.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the thing. I mean, believe me, I'm not playing devil's advocate here. I'm just giving you the obvious answer from the left. Oh, so you think 3,000 votes in Alaska made a difference? What are you, stupid? This is their always go-to answer. Oh, it's so small, it's insignificant. Hey, nickels make dimes, dimes makes quarters, quarters make dollars. It grows exponentially. When this when this New Jersey, and I'm from New Jersey. Well, I'm not from New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. But when this scandal first broke, it was 6,000. Now it's over 30,000. The point is you're only hearing about the ones that people are talking about. If you don't think there's shady business going on, then you might be just stupid enough to go to a judge and say, hey, we want our mail-in ballots to go unchecked, and find a judge, shop that judge and say, oh, he's going to do it for us. This is why they do it. And these people that vote for these folks and follow this kind of value system, if you want to call it that, they don't much give a damn provided they win.
Yeah.
They just don't care. And this kind of goes back to the moral clarity. They have none.
Yeah.
Nothing is more important than they are. And history starts every morning that their feet hit the floor.
Yep.
To borrow from the great Mark Levin, he said, and he's right about that. They don't look. This is why they have no problem tearing down statues, even if they're dead Democrats, because then they'll say the party's switched and they'll play that lie out.
Yeah.
So they don't have any moral clarity. They just have emotion and anger and hatred and envy and all of the other negative things that you can pour into them, and you get crap like this. I tell you, you're right. We should absolutely completely rip up every voter roll in every state. The problem is you're going to get people like J.D. Pritzker, who is out there he's going to call that cheating, you see. That's cheating. He even said last week that Republicans can't win unless they cheat. That's pretty rich coming from
Yeah.
Illinois. Of all states, we're going to listen to Illinois. It's like somebody from New Jersey or California talking to you about cheating. Yeah, okay, right. It's pathetic.
Well, yeah, and again, to put this into perspective, defang the left's criticism when they say you find 3,000 illegal voters, Alaska doesn't exactly have a dense population. So if there's a concentration of illegal aliens voting in, say, a small, like rural, a fishing town on the coast, that may be enough to flip every election that town has. Yeah, maybe it's not enough to change a Senate or a House seat for Alaska, but it is enough to do damage locally. Again, especially even in Nome or one of their larger cities, 3,000 is a lot of votes. I mean, there are plenty of elections that come down to hundreds, tens, or even a single vote. And again, when you don't have a dense population, that can change a lot of things. But when you see these kind of numbers, it does seem orchestrated. We already know a lot of it in New Jersey is off the motor voter nonsense, and that the state was actively allowing these people to vote. A lot of the illegal aliens that were registered to vote in New Jersey marked down that they were not U.S. citizens on the forms. So
and they still got the right to vote. That's New Jersey for you.
Yeah, so I don't hold them. If they filled out things correctly, if they were here legally, they're here on a lawful permanent resident, or they're here on a visa of some kind for a few years, and they did things the way they're supposed to, then they should not be held accountable. But people at the state need to be. And that's the real problem here, is there is no effort. And in a lot of these blue states, especially, this seems to be intentional. They want the illegal aliens voting. When we covered stories during the Biden invasion where groups of illegals were being driven state to state and registered to vote. But, that only happens, it's just a few people here and there. It's not enough to affect elections. But we are well past that at this point. We can't trust the voter rolls in any state. I think they just need to be reset. We have to make everybody register to vote again before the upcoming election. I mean, it's never going to happen. But again, if we actually cared and our politicians actually cared, this process would already be started. That way there'd be enough time to complete it. We'd get rid of all these machines. We would go back to hand-counted paper ballots. We would restrict the mail-in vote like they do in Europe. But no, they want this system in place. I think it's partially to raise money and partially because they're benefiting from the cheating.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there it is. There's both sides of the coin. They absolutely drive, money pouring in donations by saying, look, the Republicans are trying to, keep poor Black women from voting.
Yes.
The Republicans are trying to. Of course, it's all BS. But again, when you're an emotional creature, you buy into all these emotional arguments. When you're predetermined to hate Trump and anyone that would even consider voting for Trump, you're going to believe anything they tell you about what the motivation of fixing the voter rolls is. Now, of course, the motivation is to make voting free, fair, and safe, right? That's what we all want. We want our vote. They never look at oh, you give a few thousand people. What harm does it do? Well, what harm it does is double that number, because say it is 32,000 people. Okay, well, you just affected 60,000 votes, because not only did you vote for a candidate that you were going to vote for because, the Democrats did you right by letting you in the country, you also removed a vote from someone who may have voted for the other guy. So you're affecting twice the amount of votes with your one vote. And that Democrats and the media, and I think this is key, the media and academia cannot be honest with what that does tells you the whole story. Their one vote, you say it doesn't make a difference. Yes, it does. It canceled out somebody else's vote. There's 2 votes. You just got 2 votes for the price of 1. And all you had to do was open the southern border. You better rest assured, if all these people that were carrying the St. George Cross flags in London and the Union Jack in London were all of a sudden immigrated here and moved about into blue cities, Democrats would be cracking down. They would hate it because they would know how those people would vote. They would vote for, country first. And which is what they're doing in England right now. But I mean, so it's just so obvious. It drives me nuts that people can't see it, but some people.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the level of dishonesty and gaslighting. That's why people are so sick of this, especially when you have their own words from 20 years ago where they knew this was a problem, or, I think this is brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. They knew it was a problem in 1996. You even had a bill from Harry Reid right now that, I just blanked on his name. One of our senators here in Ohio, Bernie Moreno. He just recycled this bill from 94, 95, 96, somewhere in there, that Harry Reid had put forward to build a border wall and crack down on the illegal immigrants here. An exact duplicate of it, but now, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. They pretend it's no longer an issue because they need these people counted in the census. And then, that's another thing. We need to remove illegal aliens from the census so there's not a benefit to blue states that want to house them. Because right now, again, they're manipulating the vote there too. If you have an extra 5 million people, illegal aliens in your state, and then you're benefiting from that. You're getting additional representation in Congress. You're getting extra electoral votes. Not to mention you're getting a lot of filthy lucre and a lot of money. You needn't look any further than little Mogadishu in Minneapolis. That is a case study in illegal immigration and then being centralized into one location and then using that as a hub for all the other grift and graft and feathering a politician's nest. That's what happens with it. And real Americans, and I don't mean to belittle people that want to come here and become Americans. Good for you. Good. Do it the legal way. But Americans that were born and bred in this nation, when they see that, they get pissed about it. And then I wonder why.
Instead of saying, are they rightly angry about it? They say these people are racist. It's really a pathetic game.
It really is, and it is not going to change them unless we do something. And that's why, again, DOJ, you need to get your shit together. Start making some arrests. If you really have 80-something indictments in Georgia, we need to see them. These people need to be brought up on RICO charges as well. We need to prosecute them in bulk, in mass, whether it's tampering with the elections or allowing illegals into the country or allowing them to vote. And we need to put the people that are allowing it to happen in jail for the rest of their lives. Or in a lot of cases, I think, if there is direct involvement with the Chinese government, as we saw with some of this evidence that was recently released, you know what? That's treason. We can start hanging people. I would do it around the reflecting pool, especially since it was just relined. I think that would send the correct message. We need to also make it well known that if you're going to talk, there might be room to cut a deal, especially if you're going to help us prosecute the people further up the chain, because that's who we really need. We need the masterminds behind a lot of this. We need to make sure they never get out of jail or they end up dancing from the end of a rope, because there is no other acceptable solution at this point. We have to save our country, and this is going to be the only way to do it is by punishing the people that are there destroying us now, these infiltrators that have infested our government, that want to destroy the West and destroy America. There is no alternative anymore. The DOJ had better start acting soon, or we are not going to have a country, because people are not going to trust this upcoming election. If nothing is done to protect the vote and protect the rule of law. And again, when if the Republicans then in turn also get their clocks clean, we're tired of hearing the excuses. So, it is up to you to act to save the country. That's why we put you there. You better start utilizing that power, or we will not have a country going forward. And, passing the SAVE Act is another part of that equation. Senator Jim Bakes becomes the third Republican senator to demand Senate cancel August recess until Save America Act passes. I was looking for the third because I know the other one was Ron Johnson. So whoever else you are out there, great job. And we start need applying some real pressure. Maybe start taking money away from Maine or Alaska or other red states where their representatives are withholding the SAVE Act or refusing to vote for it. Whatever other states they are, and I'm sure you guys know better than us, let's start talking about restricting their funding. Let's make life very difficult for these rhinos to explain to their constituents why they won't vote for this bill, and now that it's actually costing them money.
Yeah. Well, Murkowski in Alaska uses the line of, I don't want to affect the Inuit people. They've been, it's BS. She's making all kinds of money. She's getting all kinds of donations, Murkowski. These people are self-serving twats is what they are. And it really does drive me nuts. And I don't give it, listen, I used to defend Thune. And I know that Thune can say that he doesn't have the numbers. And he's probably right about that. He doesn't have the numbers as it stands. But good God, blow up the filibuster, because the Democrats have already told you they're going to blow up the filibuster. And you know what's going to happen when that happens? We're going to have 13 Supreme Court judges. We'll have 54 states. We'll have 70 states if they could get their way. Well, they will do everything in their power to never lose power again. And then we give it to people like Thune, and thankfully we got people like Banks standing up, and of course Brandon Gill in the House is really becoming a rock star. You've got good people there, but you've also got lifers there, like Murkowski, who is a lifer plus because she inherited the seat. So and Susan Collins in Maine. Now, Susan Collins in Maine, of course, everybody vote for Susan Collins because that's our only choice beyond some crazy replacement for Plattner. But it's obvious what the problem is. The problem is the lifers. And people, you got to pass term limits. Good luck. That's not going to happen in my lifetime, in my kid's lifetime, or my grandkids' lifetime. When the very people that sit in those seats are voting to give themselves less power, it ain't going to happen. So, but something has to be done, maybe short of dangling bodies around the reflecting pool, but something certainly.
No, that needs to be done too. Yeah, seriously, we need to send a message once and for all. There's really no getting around it. There have to be real consequences, permanent consequences for this type of internal insurrection and embedding our government. But yeah, you're right. Part of the problem is the undead that are up in the Senate. The people how is it Mitch McConnell still hasn't given any kind of real proof of life, and we're just pretending he's competent and can keep the seat? Well, the clock runs out. And it's going to end up Andy Bashir putting a Democrat replacement in for his seat. And, I'm sure he'd like nothing more than that, because it'd be another way to stall Trump. Whereas if they're forced to have an election in Kentucky, chances are we end up with a conservative, not another rhino. And that's what the Uniparty doesn't want. So, yeah, I have no problem with dangling bodies wherever. Honestly, I think we ought to do a lot of the executions halftime at football games and basketball games. Wheel them out there and
sound Alabama, man.
Hey, you know what? If it gets the job done, it sends the message that this type of activity is no longer going to be accepted, and people are afraid to commit crimes and steal your vote and betray the public trust. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. It's only going to be the only way to save the country, because otherwise, again, the cancer is continuing to spread. Democrat socialist leader goes on Fox and admits every extreme thing they want to do. And this is, eliminating the Senate, eliminating the filibuster, packing the courts, prosecuting Trump and everybody on the right, more prosecutions for J6 defendants, taking your income, you're a millionaire, you're going to be paying an 80% tax or whatever it was. This will destroy the country, and this is what they're getting behind. And a lot of it they are doing, in my opinion, by stealing elections in a lot of these states. Not all of them. I think New York and some of the other ones, there's enough people there that believe this nonsense that they vote for it. I mean, again, when you have 80% of the Jewish vote voting for Mamdani, I don't know how you help those people. That they are voting to be thrown in a grave and having dirt thrown on top of them. So I just think you can't save them. Not until there's a complete crash.
Bear in mind, because I live close to this situation here in New York. Most of these New York Jews that voted for Zoran Mandami, they're not religious Jews at all. They're secular. The religious ones, the ones the Hasidics and stuff that you see in like Crown Heights and stuff, and in parts of Brooklyn and around there. They are, say what you want about them, but they are solid red voters. But New York is filled with a bunch of people that are very, very stupid, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, or any of it. And And sadly, a lot of the country is pretty stupid, especially the younger generation. And maybe ignorant would be a better word because they just don't know, naive, that socialism will rip this country apart. Absolutely. And they can sit there and put their fancy little titles on it, Democrat socialism, and they can say, oh, the left is the right rather is trying to blow this up and say that what the DSA is equivalent to communism. That's because your own website mentions it so many times.
Yeah.
It's not close to communism. It's not communist adjacent. It is communism.
Yep.
And people that are stupid enough to believe that, I would just, for one, love to ask Zoran Mandami, who gives you the right to remove money from Peter to pay Paul? Where do you get that power? And all they can say is, I'm the mayor. I can do it. So, in other words, that tells you where their head is. Their head is that the government is the authority.
Yep.
That should scare the living shit out of everyone. And yet kids today are embracing this because they're envious. And again, they got saddled with debt thanks to Obama. So,
yeah. And it's hard to run against Santa Claus when you have Mamdani or whoever else making all these promises, from free groceries to ending your student loans to whatever other nonsense he can't actually deliver on. And then you have the media out there running cover for it. Oh, well, we're not going to get the free buses. It's not Mamdani's fault. It's the millionaires and the billionaires that are fleeing the state. There's just not money for it anymore. There's never any accountability. There's nothing realistic. And again, this is why people need to swing for it. Again, if the message isn't sent that if you betray the country, there are permanent consequences, you will lose your life, then it's just going to continue. We got to get back to serious political parties, even if they disagree, but ones that operate within the Constitution, or if they don't like a law or a bill, or an amendment, that maybe they need to, instead of just crying about it, campaign on getting enough people unified to change the rules, whether that's changing a law or amending the Constitution, instead of just pretending it doesn't exist because it doesn't serve their interest and trying to go around it. Again, if we're going to be a nation of laws, it's time to actually enforce them. So,
yeah, well, listen, the left, and I hate to even use the word Democrats because the Democrat Party is slowly, but certainly surely being replaced with socialists.
Yeah.
It's certainly not, it's not only not your parents' Democrat Party, it's not even your older siblings' Democratic Party anymore. But the way the left works globally is they just rewrite history and they write themselves into power. The Democrats did it with race. They have an entire history of, well, the Klan was the militarized wing of the Democratic Party. All of those statues that were torn down in Charlottesville and stuff and around the country, they were all Democrats. And not only were they Democrats, some of them were slave owners. So what does the Democrat and the leftists do? They all of a sudden realize, look, we are a bunch of racists. So we need to, how about we coddle? How about we flip the script? We're still racist as hell, but now we'll pretend that we care. And we'll get a bunch of people to believe that the party's switched platforms and all this other garbage. And I'm telling you, Michael, you've had these conversations, no doubt, with some of your, I don't know how many lefty friends you have. Probably not many. I know I don't, but I do know some people that are. And they will tell you, and they're deadly serious, that the party's complete. Look up the Southern strategy. Look up the Southern. That's what they'll say. They know nothing about what they talk. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Alveda King many times over the course of my life. She's a very wise woman. And she, of course, her famous line is, there's only one race, the human race. She's right about that. But she recognized full well what the Democrats were doing. The Democrats were paying people to remain poor, subservient, and keep them on the government dole. And now that the black vote in 2016 turned so heavily towards Trump, it scared them. They opened up the floodgates of the southern border because they needed more poor, subservient people. This is what they do. And then if you talk about it, you criticize it and say, this is stupid, not because the people are brown or black or whatever, you're immediately labeled a racist. It's such a cynical tactic. And they always get away with it because their media their media wing of the party makes sure they get away with it. It's really sickening.
Pretty much. But again, until we're willing to do something about it, it ain't going to change. Xavier Becerra's campaign rocked by horrifying claims from whistleblower. So this actually goes back to him being the, I remember this, he wasn't actually a border czar. That was Kamala Harris. I can't remember what his official title was now. But, this is not just the 380,000 missing kids, but there's now direct evidence coming out that they tried to cover it up. They lied about it. They got the media to run false stories. And this is on top of, he's still in the middle of being prosecuted for campaign finance violations and fraud. And the other is co-defendants there took deals. So this guy might be in prison before the ballots are out for California. So you may not be able to vote for Xavier Becerra at all. But again, we already know the shenanigans are going on there. Now, I do like some of these videos Spencer Pratt's now putting out in conjunction with Steve Hilton. They're great over the weekend. But again, I think that the state is this corrupt that there is no way at this point a Republican can win. And all you have to do is go back and look at election night. There's basically no polling companies are going to dispute Steve Hilton was number one with a bullet for basically the entire election season in California for at least the last 6 months. And then somehow he comes in second place, almost third place on election day. You want to say, oh yeah, well the Democrats all coalesced around Becerra. I don't know how they knew to do that, considering he was until days before the election he was never polling even close to Hilton, and a lot of these ballots in Cal, you have election season there. So how did the people know a month ago to vote for Becerra when you still had Porter and other people challenging them for the second and third place positions there? It doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, hopefully this guy is in jail before election day in California, and I wonder how they're going to account for airdropping another Democrat to run against Hilton.
Hey, listen, when Newsom said about a month or two ago, we're at the break the glass moment. Well, break the glass moment means that, hey, we've got to start cheating hard now.
Yeah.
And you'd have to be not only willfully blind, but willfully stupid not to see what happened, especially to Spencer Pratt. That mayoral race in LA was pathetic. That this third place nobody shows up out of the blue like an avenging angel in the night, gets more votes than Karen Bass or Spencer Pratt just to keep Spencer Pratt off the ballot.
Yeah.
It beggars belief that people could admittedly think that was legit. But yet they will, and they'll argue it because, like I said, they don't give a damn how they get there. It's the old Marxist trope, isn't it? The ends justify the means, by God.
Yes.
So let's break the glass.
Oh yeah, and again, that's why we can't have any sympathy, and people need to swing for a lot of these crimes that have gone on that put us in this place. We cannot go soft, and or this it's going to continue. The only way this stops is if the people perpetrating these kind of crimes on the American citizens think that there are going to be real permanent consequences, that we're going to arrange their meeting with Satan, and then they can spend eternity down in hell. Otherwise, they're not going to stop. So, if they're working with a foreign nation to steal elections, well, guys, guess what? Now that does rise to the level of treason, and it's the only crime in the Constitution, and the prescribed punishment is death by hanging. So, time to actually, again, live under the rule of law. California, it's just such a joke and such a shit show I think the best example is that, voters a week afterwards, and again, how's your ballot taking a week to get counted anyway? It's clearly not. They're clearly just making up new ballots. We know they were taking ones with handwritten postmark dates on them, all kinds of other just nonsense. But when you write the law so that any ballot can count and there's no security measures, and as we covered Friday, suddenly we found 250,000 ballots that were rejected in California. Wouldn't you know it? They all came out of conservative rural areas. Those are the ones that the signatures don't match or there's some other problem with. But God forbid you have any sort of safety measures in LA or San Francisco or any other blue part of the state. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, again, we got to start taking this stuff seriously. All right, let's try to sneak in a couple other stories here real quick before we wrap up. Fauci toadies privately called lab leak theory highly likely while publicly shutting it down. Fauci's diaries show he relished in the fame during COVID and didn't dismiss the lab leak theory. Well, Fauci's diary, among other things, been released now. It basically, I know there's like one of the top stories right now on a lot of conservative media, but I kind of feel like this is like a lot of other documents that are released. This is just confirmation of what we already knew. We knew they tried to suppress lab leak theory. And again, there should be people around Fauci prosecuted for this that knowingly misinformed the public or outright lied. Yeah, I was listening to something over the weekend that, for the first 6 months of this disease, the CDC was still saying it wasn't airborne. They were saying it wasn't transmittable through the air. And I guess that had to do with they were knowingly lying to the American public so masks wouldn't go flying off the shelf when they still need them for hospitals. But again, they lied to do that. I know Fauci's got this presidential immunity, and apparently we're not going to really go after that or do anything. But the states can still prosecute him. Where are you guys? If he lied and that negatively affected people in your state or led to their deaths, then charge this guy. Make his life hell, even if he can't get a conviction. We got to start fighting like the left does, or they are going to just take our country down brick by brick.
This, as I'm watching the story and listening to you and seeing that picture of Fauci, which has now been replaced by me, and I'm seeing the flames go behind. I'm like, boy, that's a perfect image of Fauci right there, burning in the flames of hell. This guy was the most arrogant, media focused. He was a one-man show. And he loved the fact that was one of Trump's biggest mistakes, was giving this guy that pedestal. Yep. This guy's been a joke since the AIDS epidemic. He was, when he left, the highest paid federal worker, including the president. He was making more than anybody. And if you read his diaries, it's like, oh, I'm getting good press. Oh, I made the cover of Vanity Fair. Oh, I'll be on The View tomorrow. Oh, they're going to interview me on NPR, and then I've got to make it to the studio to be on PBS. They loved Fauci. And now his diaries come out and it reads like some, I mean, it's disgusting when you read it, because you can see he'll sit there and list how many people died. And then underneath that, he goes, but meanwhile, I've got to do my photo shoot tomorrow. It's all about him. And I think the guy is a joke. And the presidential immunity, yeah, okay, well, maybe you can't bring federal charges on the guy. But I mean, I'm no lawyer. But can't you file a class action lawsuit? I don't know. Yeah, you mentioned states. States should go after him. I don't know, but something, civil court, whatever. This guy's going to pay for his sins in eternity, no matter what happens. But it sure would be nice to see him pay for some of those sins while he's still 6 feet above the ground, because that guy wreaked havoc on not only the United States, but the entire world. And he's a hero of the left. Go figure.
Yeah, of course he is. Yeah, Florida, hopefully your AG's got balls still. You guys could prosecute him. You already went up against him during COVID when they tried to, prevent you guys from letting your state stay open. So maybe it's time to, again, actually get some justice for the American people, even if it's just putting this rat in jail where he belongs and letting him die in prison.
Bankrupt him, for God's sakes. Yeah,
I mean, that too. Same with this man wife. See if we can charge her, him, whatever it is, with something. Again, pull these people off the streets, actually do what we elected you to do, and then we won't have to worry about the midterms. Again, if you guys are actually doing the things you ran on, that you fulfilling the promises that you made, you're not going to have any problem. The reason everybody's frustrated right now and why we're on a knife's edge of what direction the country's going to go during these 2026 elections is because you guys are useless. That Congress isn't acting, Congress isn't doing anything. And I know the argument is, well, you got to go out and vote for him anyway to protect Trump and his agenda. Well, people just aren't going to do that anymore. People are sick and tired of being betrayed by their Congress members. We said yeah, and we just had 49 of you retards go back this other amnesty bill. Oh, it's just for the farm workers. You're already talking about expanding it to people that work in factories and warehouses, you retards. And everybody sees this. So how do you expect people to go vote for any of those 49 people when you're betraying us, betraying the main issues that we voted on that you have power to do something about? So this is the key problem right now, and why I am not convinced that we're going to have some major victory in November, because there's a lot of people that are tired of this. They're already throwing up their hands saying, you know what, I can't sign my name to this. I can't vote for someone who's going to allow amnesty, mass amnesty for illegal aliens. I can't vote for someone that's going to do this. So even if you are the stopgap to impeachments, it doesn't really matter anymore. People want results.
Well, they do. And, I mean, we'll see when between that, you got less than 100 days now. Yeah, I think it's a big lift to get them to pass everything we'd love to see them pass. But it sure would be nice to see them put forth some kind of effort, the old college try.
Yeah.
Um, in some cases they are, say what you want about Todd Blanche, but he has gone after some of the folks in Minneapolis. But we want to see big names we want to see big trees get chopped down.
Yes.
And I agree with you. It better happen. Trump is starting to obviously put a little pressure on Thune, if nobody else. So we'll see. But
Yeah.
I do know this, that if the DSA continues to grow the way it has, this country's in real trouble. I don't think the DSA is ever going to make any inroads into, certain states and areas but they will make a difference in urban centers, and that's where elections count. So they better start taking all of this crap seriously, or else we'll be, maybe doing the podcast from a prison cell if they get in trouble,
Yeah, it'll be live from Cell Block 6. I think I saw that movie before. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, this is why I keep saying this, that there have to actually be consequences. I know Congress isn't the DOJ, but even Todd Blanche, stop telling me about how Ilhan Omar is connected to the Feeding Your Families fraud. And they use this address. Her sister's involved with it now, too. I saw that story over the weekend that she pilfered hundreds of thousands of dollars from the taxpayers. You know what? Again, they don't have special protection. Let's deport them. We can give Ilhan Omar's husband a chance to be deported over there too. We don't want to separate families, so he can head to Somalia with her, or he can stay here in jail since he's the one that allegedly wrote up a lot of this stuff that they're now looking at. But I'm tired of hearing about the investigations. It's time for some handcuffs. It's time for some results, and it's I'm glad that you can get the Somali fraudsters, and I saw we just got some other fraudster in. Oh man, no, I can't remember if it was the Dominican Republic or Haiti. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But anyway, all right, I got one last story I want to get to because this is just freaking hilarious. Broke Democrats put up DNC headquarters as collateral for a massive $15 million loan ahead of the 2026 midterms. Well, $15 million, a lot of money to you or me, but for a political party, this is nothing. So if they're having to put this is chump change. I mean, they spent almost $1 billion in the last election cycle between Kamala Harris, her bar tab, and then trying to float other Democrats around the country. And that may have been a combination of DNC money and other I almost said NGOs, other super PACs, probably NGOs too, to do their work. But still, we were joking months ago when the DNC was broke. They spent their last $15 million probably paying off Kamala's bar tab because it went to go pay off her campaign's debts. But I hope that they are not able to repay this loan and whatever the time frame is, and then we see a bank repossess the DNC headquarters and throw them all out of it. That would just be perfect.
Well, look, the DNC is crooked as a dog's leg. You remember when the DNC was hacked, and why did that story die? I'll tell you why that story died, because that story exposed loads and loads of corruption within the DNC. The DNC was fully aware of the Russia hoax. They were intimately involved with that hoax, as well as the Obama administration and Susan Rice and all the other miscreants that did it. Well, the DNC was the launching point. The DNC and the Hillary campaign. This whole organization, which is largely why socialists are now taking over this party. So, on one hand, you hear, it's going to be a blue wave. And on the other hand, it's like they have to put up their headquarters as collateral for a convention. So which is it? Because it can't be both.
Well, it's hard to compete, though, with a political party that has the media out there doing most of their work for them for free. So, I mean, that's the other problem is you have so many people that are misinformed and that the media is not out there to inform the American public. They are out there to project a narrative that greatly benefits the Democrat and the uniparty Republicans.
It's an in-kind donation that never, ever, ever gets talked about. But you're right.
Exactly. So it is hard to compete. You know what? I am going to sneak in one last story here just because I find this hysterical. AP sob story on Nepalese trans aid workers turning to prostitution after USAID cuts is mocked. Why was the U.S. funding employment for transgender Nepalese sex workers anyway? That's the real question. And, once again, why is it that our tax dollars have to go to this kind of nonsense? Why? Who gives a shit about Nepalese trans prostitutes? We do not need to be funding them here in the U.S. I mean, I'm sure Lindsey Graham was thrilled with this and thrilled with this spending, but how are we spending money like this? We really do need to bring back Doge once again, let them actually finish their job, gut all these programs, go through every dollar through the Treasury, and at the very least, bring it to the American people's attention that we're funding drag shows in Pango Pango or Lesotho or transgender surgeries in Ecuador, whatever other nonsense, that we are wasting the American people's money with, so we can just cut all these programs once and for all and allow the government to, just destroying the country through legal means they have, instead of just wasting it on this kind of stuff too.
Yeah, well, you've proven once again that you are, as I long suspected, a Nepalesophobe and
Yes.
a Nepalese transphobe.
Yeah.
That's who you are. I mean,
Mhm.
of course we should be funding this. Yes, why not? Let's not fund anything that might actually be of benefit to the nation. Let's look for tiny little victim classes somewhere in some third world shithole country. I'll say it, and then we can use that to. Oh yeah, sure. We'll cut a few balls and off, and we'll make nice. But then we'll get a major kickback from the NGO that's running this scam. It's it's so bloody obvious that's why they got so pissed off about USAID getting blown up like it did, because that's where this dovetails perfectly with the story we just talked about, that DNC is having to put up their own headquarters as collateral because they have no money. Isn't it coincidental that the DNC has no money after we stopped funding Nepalese trans surgeries and all the Pango Pango drag shows and all this other crap that USAID was feathering nests all over the damn world with? It's no wonder at all that they're busted. This is the reason they hated USAID getting blown up, because Doge, even though it wasn't around for long, boy, it put a hit in the pocket of the left in a big way.
Oh, yeah. If they do get their headquarters repossessed, which I hope they do, Trump should definitely buy it from the bank and turn it into like a Trump hotel or a museum of leftist failures, one or the other. And, or just burn it down. Maybe we could just take donations from people, use it as a fundraising tool that for X amount that you can throw a brick through a window there, or you can set a room on fire. Maybe we could retire the national debt that way. All right, Steve, thank you for joining us today. Any words of wisdom you want to leave the audience with?
Well, mainly that you were right. You mentioned it in the run up here that we are going to be moving Right Hook to Wednesdays. So Wednesdays 4 to 5 p.m. Fridays, I love doing it, but the last several Fridays, one thing comes up after another, and it's just not a great day for me to do it because I have a life outside of this. But Wednesday is a perfect day, and I look forward to seeing you again, Michael, because you'll probably join me Wednesday for the Right Hook 4 p.m. right here.
Awesome. And I will also be back on Wednesday. I've got an appointment tomorrow I can't miss in the morning. Sorry, I know I had to skip a Thursday a couple of weeks ago too. But we will be back on Wednesday with a very special guest and, more stuff that'll probably just piss you off because, I just don't see things changing too much between now and the next elections. Then that's when all the blaming is going to start. But Steve, thank you for joining us here today. To our audience, thank you for being with us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear.